I now know, without a doubt, Umberto, if you give people sound scientific information, and science is the contemporary language of mysticism. It is. Correct. Science demystifies the mystical.
Hello guys, the reason you're watching this video is most probably because you want to bring more joy and happiness in your life. You're in the right place. Dr. Joe Dispenza shared his way of making these changes. Who said it should be difficult to have a beautiful life? You heard it on the news, from your friends maybe, your parents. Happiness is the state everybody can have, and it comes from within you, not from the outside world. Before I leave you with Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you love his work and you don't want to miss my new videos, hit that subscribe button and the bell button next to it. Enjoy!
And you combine a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, a little neuroendocrinology, a little psychoneuroimmunology, a little epigenetics, a little brainwave technology. And people, as they're embracing that information, and it's current, now it's not enough to just listen to it, because you learn it, you make new connections in your brain. But then we ask our students to turn to the person next to them and explain it. If you can't explain it, it's not wired in your brain. So then they begin to build a model of understanding, firing and wiring, firing and wiring. And as they begin to make their brain fire in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations, they're changing their mind. Mind is the brain in action. So if we keep reminding them of these models and they can explain it, they're installing the neurological hardware in their brain in preparation for the experience. And the more they understand what they're doing and why, the how gets easier. So then, if I can set up the conditions in the environment immediately right afterwards, and nothing's left to conjecture, nothing's left to superstition, nothing's left to dogma. Yes, you understand exactly what you're doing and why. And you give the people the proper instruction, and they feel safe enough to do it. And I have 750 people, or 1,000 people, or 1,500 people, a community of people all doing it at the same time. A certain percentage of those people are going to get their behaviors to match their intentions and their actions equal to their thoughts. And when they do, they're going to have some type of transformation, a change in form. Well, if I could measure their transformation, like we did, then I have more information to teach transformation the next time. And if I can measure that transformation, I have more information to teach transformation the next time. So all of a sudden you start closing the gap between knowledge and experience. So there's a momentum when you get a community of people together, and they're not busy on their cell phones or their computers or taking care of their kids. They are focused, and they're focused on creating a new future. And after looking at 8,000 some odd brain scans, I can tell you that you are at your absolute best when you get beyond yourself, period. That is a fact. So you get all of a sudden now people starting to break through. And we start at 6 in the morning, and we go to 6 in the evening, or 7 in the evening. Nobody complains. It's fun. And some days we're up at 4 in the morning, because that is when the brain chemistry is right for the mystical. And people show up because they want the mystical more than their sleep. Yes. So if we get a community of people doing this, and the first day, it's a little bit of a challenge to break past your emotions and your frustration and your habits and all the voices in your head. But if you keep going, all of a sudden, there's a momentum. And people just start letting go. And so in 4 days, well, Saturday or Sunday, the energy of the room was off the chart. People were standing up that had all kinds of amazing healings. And I thought, what if we had 3 more days of this? We could move mountains. And so I stopped doing the 4-day events, stopped doing the measurements, because we have tons of data, although we do some measurements here and there, and do the week-longs, and let's just go. And so now in the week-long events, after looking at all the data, I know that you can create heart coherence and brain coherence because I've seen your scan. So then I say, okay, let's do something really supernatural. Let's put people in conditions in the environment that would normally evoke fear, anxiety, normally would evoke exhaustion, or some type of limited state. And in that moment, have them begin to, with their eyes open, create heart coherence and brain coherence, and begin to make that change. And all of a sudden, people are, in these new week-longs, they're breaking through. Because if you're standing on a pole that's, let's see, 15 meters, 13 meters in the air, really tall, really high, and you are, strapped in, but you're standing on that pole and there's a trapeze behind you, or you're walking across a plank, and that other side is your future, and your legs are shaking and your heart is racing. You only got one of two choices. Either you're going to stop with your eyes open, work on creating coherence again, settling down and moving across. And we have people with MS, with lupus, we have people with Parkinson's disease walking across those planks. And let me tell you something, they got off those planks and they were not the same person. And so the model is not so much accomplishment, because that becomes a trap as well. The model is taking people further than where they normally go. Because what happens with most people is that I believe that you learn the most about yourself, and you learn the most about others when they're outside their comfort zone. True. Or when we're outside our comfort zone. So then all of this is like to get people to the point where they believe in themselves. And when you believe in yourself, you believe in possibility. And when you take a person who says, I don't think I can do that, and you say, well, why don't you just climb up and see how you do? And then they climb up, and then you say, why don't you just get up there? And it's all safe, and it's there's a ton of support. But if you're afraid of heights, it freaks you out. Right, but if you go further than where you normally go, there's a release of energy. Yes. And that release of energy is free energy. That's available energy for you to create a new future. That's available energy to heal. So in these week-longs, we've had 2 so far. I'll show you some of the videos when we break here, and it's really powerful, really powerful. And to challenge people to that measure, and to get them to believe in themselves, there's no greater drug. Yeah. There's just no greater feeling. And then imagine, you're up there and it's not competitive. Everybody is down there cheering you on and loving you. Right. You can do this. And, people in their 80s, do that. And then when it comes to the walking meditation, they heal their body in 1 hour, walking as their future self. I mean, it's just outstanding. So I'm super excited about it because I've stopped doing my progressive workshops. I've stopped doing the intensive workshops. I don't do keynotes very often unless I owe somebody a favor. I don't do conferences that much. My passion is to be with doers. Real transformation. Real transformation. Evidence. I mean, this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. And I'm so proud to say that the community of people that we have around the world, they do the work. They just do the work. They just wake up in the morning and they change their brain and body, and they get their heart open and they get in that state, and they expect the uncommon and the miraculous and the unknown to show up in their life, because why else are we doing this? People think they want health, or they want wealth, or they want a new relationship, or they want love. It's not that. It's who you become in the process. Because every person that had a spontaneous remission, and I've interviewed so many of them in our work, they'll tell you that my disease was my greatest teacher. They'll tell you it wasn't my mother, it wasn't my father who was abusive, it wasn't my uncle, who was abusive. It's just who I became in the process. You can't take that away from a person, because it's not the wealth. It's you become. You become the very thing. And so people are starting to wrap their mind around these concepts. And when you start understanding that, the only thing you want is the unknown. In stress, you run from the unknown. When your heart is open, you crave it. It's an adventure. And so people are evolving because of it, and they're doing the work. And we have the evidence to show that common people around the world are doing the uncommon. The funny thing about that is our last advanced week-long, we had 3 people step out of their wheelchairs. It's becoming the new normal. And again, when you see somebody, and this is the power of numbers, and there's nothing like a story. Yes. You have witnessed people stand up with a diagnosis of breast cancer, of colon cancer, a diagnosis of peripheral neuropathy, a diagnosis of esophageal cancer. You watch them stand on the stage and tell their story of their own personal healing, and they don't look like a movie star or a sports figure. They're not all young, they're not all buffed, they're not all wealthy, and something happens that's innate in us. You watch that, and it's not like all glamorous. They had a lot of struggles, they had a lot of challenges, they lost the people in their life, they got really sick, and they kept going. And you hear how they did the work in spite of fear, self-doubt. You hear that they did the work in spite of feeling so sick that they couldn't do it or there wasn't enough time. They never missed a day. And they stand up there and they say, I had no reason to be in love with life, but every day I wouldn't get up for my meditation until I was in love with life. And the disease is gone, and I have a great life right now. I'm in love with my life. And you watch that person tell the story. They're speaking to you about possibility. And you can't sit down and do the work and deny that it's the truth any longer. You now know it's the truth.
Yes.
And it's no longer like, this isn't really, for me, it doesn't really work. It's really like, what is it about me that's not making my way? What is it? What is the emotion? What is the unconscious belief? What is the program?